Welcome, guys, to another couchisode. Today, we will be leading the French resistance against the German Gestapo.
And we will have, basically, voodoo goblins. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. And welcome to yet another couchisode. This week we have some pretty good games that bring back some good memories, not only of games, but you'll have to wait and see. We have good games,
Exactly.
don't we, DJ?
Exactly, we do. We
And
have
moldy.
a lot of good games today. Moldy games, as usual. And let's kick right off. Blade, show us the way to this couchisode.
I shall show the way. And we are
This is
going
the way.
back. Yeah, this is the way. My only friend, the way. See what I did there?
No.
No.
Yes,
no.
you
That was
did kind of a mix. You did kind of
Yeah,
a mix
it
between
was- yeah.
Mandalorian and the Doors.
Yeah, that was kind of there. Okay,
And
so
this is it's not this is the way, this is the end. But I get
know
it. I get
you
it,
get
I
the
it,
idea.
I
So
get it.
let's travel back to 1991 to the PC to play a game, to the PC or the Amiga, but I play this on the PC, and play a game called Gobliiins. The mythical Gobliiins, released by
a great
Cocktail Vision. This
What
game
a great game!
was so cool. And I mean
Yes,
so
it
cool, so funny, and so stupid. This game was really stupid because this was basically a series of levels with puzzles you needed to solve. But these weren't exactly logical puzzles that you needed to solve. This was more of a trial and error, so you'd figure out how to skip the levels because you would lose sometimes, you'd get stuck or you would die, and this would really be a trial and error until you got to finish the game. This would basically work with 3 goblins you had, and the funny thing is, if you played the Gobliiins games, there were 4 of them. On the name, it says Gobliiins on the first one with 3 eyes. Each eye just directs you to the amount of goblins you will control during the game, and this happens in every single of the 4 games. This is a very peculiar detail that's really fun to know. But I was telling you that to solve these puzzles, you had these 3 goblins, each with their own skills. You had a fighter one that would just punch things. You had the one with the hat that could pick up items and use them. And you had the wizard one that could magically interact with some elements on the scenarios to help you complete them. And the great thing about this game is back then, the graphics were really good because the game really looked like a cartoon back then. And the intro was epic. You had this royal family at the dining table.
At
and you
the
had
dining
this
table, yeah.
And you had this voodoo doll just showing up on the side and just poking the king and him screaming. And then the
Yeah.
game at some point would start and you would be like, what the hell happened? Because you didn't get any explanation. But it was so fun and so difficult to complete this game. And this was on the first one to the fourth one. It was a really challenging, fun game. And the comedy elements on this was just outstanding.
I played this a lot, although I have to say that probably the one I actually have the best memories of, it's Gobliiins 3. And I have to say that for me it was the best. Even playing all the others, I think Gobliiins 3 was quite good. But I always looked at this game, but at the first one, and I always thought that this was kind of the inspiration for the Lost Vikings, you know? Like, I know that the kind of game
In
is
a
not
way,
the
yeah.
same. But the thing that you had 3 characters with all different abilities and you had to rotate between them to get to the final goal was kind of interesting. And then we later on saw that with the Lost Vikings and obviously many other games that you could use different characters to achieve so. Fun thing about this game is that I always thought that this game was an adventure game, and although it might be, it's still considered more of a puzzle game rather than an adventure game itself.
It was an adventure game because it was an adventure to complete it.
Yeah, probably, probably about that. But it was really interesting. The puzzles was very much point and click like. I mean, this was in its true core maybe a point and click, but or the essence of it in terms of playability was a point and click. But
The interaction
I always,
level, yeah.
yeah, exactly. But there was not so much about this fact that you had to travel to different locations and resolve situations in one place to get to the other. It was usually just that screen. That screen had a puzzle. It could pan out, and the screens were usually larger, and you had to go to somewhere to do so. But it was much more limited. And I think that the difficulty was increased by using those puzzles or by solving those puzzles that were, some of them were, they were really so nonsensical that they ended up being difficult because of that.
Stupid, literally.
You wouldn't really understand why that would be so stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good game. And I definitely
game.
remember I played all of them. So definitely one of those that I also have dear memories from. So moving on to something that I want to bring right now. And I shall say listen carefully because I shall say this only once. And obviously, if I say this, everybody knows what I'm going to talk about. René. But maybe the game wasn't. I'm sure that the game wasn't as popular as the BBC series. So obviously, I'm going to be talking about Allo Cartoon Fun from 1993. This was released for the Amiga and was developed and published by Alternative Software. Now, I have to say that there's not much to talk about this game. And the funny thing is how this came to my mind was I was talking to my cousin this weekend, and the one that had the Amiga 500 that I used to camp at his place every weekend to play on. And we were talking about those old stupid games we played, and he brought up this one, and I was like, oh yeah, you're absolutely right. I didn't remember about this, but now that you talked about it, then I grabbed a copy of the game and I went to play it, and I said, yeah, now this brings the memory, and it's funny because the purpose of this game, it's one of those sitcoms that I only learned how to appreciate, after being an adult, because back then it was just funny, stupid stuff being done by a bunch of people, and remember that this was just a rerun that I was watching because I was too much of a child, or I was too little to actually understand this, but it was just funny, stupid things being done by people with weird accents, right? And after learning the whole background of the world,
was awesome.
Yeah, but the question is, after you learn the background of the World War II, then it starts to make sense. And I can see how the BBC made such great humor for, about an otherwise terrible event of human history. And I guess that's the beauty of the human being able to look back at our darkest hours and without disrespecting it, making someone laugh with it. So, laughable.
We are Portuguese. We excel at that.
Oh, yeah. Very well, indeed. Laughable is also the overall plot of this game, just like the series. We take the role of René Artois, the one that usually says, "You stupid woman." It's always saying this. In finding the painting of the fallen Madonna with the big boobies by Van Klomp. That's the painting. There was this painting there that they had to find. If we select two players, the second player can actually be Michel Dubois, the leader of the French Resistance, and the one that always says, listen carefully, I shall say this only once. Throughout the 5 levels of the game, we will have to perform multiple tasks, such as finding the fake paintings of the fallen Madonna, and saving British pilots as well as other resistance members. So it's a basic platformer game, much to the similarity of many others that we've seen. Although every time I play this, I always get a feeling of Bart versus the Space Mutants. I don't know why. Don't ask me. Or maybe the Blues Brothers because of the way the heads were shaped. I don't know. It was really. It was nothing new in terms of the gameplay or experience itself. It was something that already existed for many years. This is from 1993, so I wouldn't really give it points for creativity or innovation. But anyways, that's it. Unfortunately, there's not a lot more to say. The game itself is quite short, and I guess that it couldn't be much longer, considering that, as I said, it's not a top quality game or a blockbuster per se. But it's fun if you enjoyed it and you watch the show. Then you can definitely give it a go. But if you didn't like it and you already tried it, then we can say, Klaus, bring me the Flammenwerfer. And that's it, guys. Burn it to the ground if you didn't like it. I don't think that...
Crispy.
Crispy. I don't think that anyone would mind. Again, it's not like we're talking about Doom or Wolfenstein 3D or something like that.
Your use of accent there just reminded me of this great movie called Snatch where you had this character played by Jason Statham that was like before the Germans get here. You always kept saying this the whole movie, and if you haven't watched this movie, just watch it. It's awesome.
I thought you were going to talk about, when you said a movie, I thought you were going to talk about Inglourious Bastards, and
that's a good one. No, but Snatch is such a great movie. You guys have to watch it. And the cast on this movie is just phenomenal. You just have to watch it.
My favorite quote of that movie of Inglourious Bastards was when Christopher Waltz finishes, killing everyone in the dairy farm that was underground, and the girl runs away, and he says, "Au revoir, Shoshana," and I mean, that's just the perfect intro for an excellent role by Christopher Waltz. But again, it's not about movies, but I'm a big fan of Quentin Tarantino, and that movie to me
movies.
Probably was a masterpiece. But that's just my opinion. Anyways, let's move forward. Enough about the movies and enough about this, let's say, sordid game. So let's call it that way. So what do you have for us next?
Okay, let's change this a bit. Let's go to 1996, to the Sega Saturn, to a great game called Pandemonium.
Oh,
and what a great game.
Very well.
This also came out on the PC and the PlayStation. Okay.
I had already planned talking about that game, but I never came around to it.
Yeah, I was actually surprised you haven't talked about this one yet.
I like the game so much. I played the second one more, but I love the first one too. I mean, it was a great game. I loved it. I mean, great. Yeah. This perspective of this platformer, it makes such sense. It's so great, really.
And it was cool. And back then, it wasn't too common to see games that looked as good as this one, 3D wise. It wasn't a 3D game. You played it like a 2D platformer, but the graphics were polygonal and they looked like the whole game was fully 3D when it actually wasn't playing full 3D. And it was a really cool game. It wasn't that hard to complete, and didn't have very original mechanics, but the game was really well built and well structured, and it played really well, control wise and everything. And it had this simple story. I remember that it started in a keep, I think it was Lancelot Castle, and you had Nikki with Fargus and this stick puppet that was called Sid, if I remember right, just casting spells and training from a book. And then he just tells her, hey, just use this spell, and she says, hey, this is level 10 or whatever. And she casts it anyway, and this huge monster, like a crocodile dragon of sorts, just shows up and eats their own town. And you just go on a quest to get it back. This was basically the premise of the game. But it was really fun to play, and it was fast-paced and really colorful.
I mean, you said that it wasn't fully 3D, but I would have to disagree on that. I mean, the game was 3D. I mean, especially that you had several times.
2.5D, because you couldn't rotate the game and play it freely. You just played it.
No, I know. It was a fixed camera angle. Most of the times you would see it from a let's say isometric point of view. Yeah. But there was many times where the camera angles would rotate depending on what was actually happening. There was some things like you would have this, this similar viewing angle like Crash Bandicoot, and that some other times you would have it on, completely sideways, like playing Sonic or Super Mario or whatever,
Yeah, let's call it 3D-ish.
Yeah, I mean,
3D-ish.
I understand what you're saying in terms of saying it was not like fully 3D. Yeah, I mean, it was not like Sonic 3D, for example.
Or like Mario 64.
Or Mario 64, exactly. No, it wasn't that kind of experience, but still, I can't really explain to you how this game was. When I played it, I found it so good. I think it was, first of all, it was very fast-paced. I think that the game was not boring at all. It was not one of those platforms that you could say that, like you could say that I played it for like half an hour and I already, know everything about it. Because, as I said, there was a lot of camera angle changes during the game itself. And, at some point we would have to use, jump to places that we didn't even see on the screen. We just tried to guess that they were there, and actually we would jump to hidden platforms and stuff like that. Yeah. I have great memories of this game, especially...
And the game actually played very different when you used the different characters, because they played very different.
I only used the girl. I think it was the girl.
Yeah, because she had double jump. It was useful.
Exactly. So that was the best one to play with.
Yeah.
But I think that on the first one, on the second one, I think I tried different characters. But great game. Same cousin that had the Amiga was the one that later on had the Sega Saturn, and this is where I played the game at this place.
Game.
I mean, spend some.
You can pick the game up on GOG, but well, it didn't age very well. I'm telling you that. But it can still be very, very enjoyable.
Control schemes are janky. I have to tell you
they're
that.
not. You just need to get used to it.
Control mechanics are janky. I mean, for today's
standard, okay.
No. Even for that day's standards, one of the things that I remember hearing about this game was that, and I felt that too, was that sometimes the camera angle switches were not really, they
weren't perfect.
Benefit you a lot, which was something that happened also with Resident Evil, if you remember. Like
it happened with every 3D game back then. Even Mario 64 had that problem at some point.
Alone in the Dark also had that problem.
Exactly.
Some of the angles were not really the best ones, but again, I mean, we knew that back then we didn't really care about that because we didn't have anything better to compare. But
I guess everything was good back then.
It's like listening to this new pop music right now and saying that, come back Spice Girls, you are forgiven because your music was much better. I guess that when we get to a lower point that, something is not as good as it was, then before what was bad becomes good. Anyways.
Just let something better come. Yeah.
Exactly. Moving on. And to finish up today in great style. So today I'm going to be talking about a great game on our air freshener moment. Well, okay, great game. Maybe. It depends on who actually plays it. I like these games a lot and this type of games, and I'll talk about this. So I'm going to talk about PC Building Simulator from 2019. This was released for several platforms, PC, PlayStation 4, I believe, Xbox, all the things, available, even Nintendo Switch, if I'm not mistaken. This was developed by Claudiu Chis and published by the Regular Company. Claudiu Chis, which is an independent Romanian developer that I've never heard about. So today, paying respect to him with the game that he developed and bringing it up to the couch. So, just like the name says, PC Building Simulator is a game that takes us on the experience of owning a PC repair business. Diagnosing and fixing computers, upgrading them as well as build new ones will take our skill to bring a new name to the business as well as improve the customer score. And that's right, because if you thought that this game had no story, well, then you're wrong, because it does have. The backstory on this game is that we took over the business from our Uncle Tim. That's how he gets, mentioned in the game. And it's our job to undo some of the mess he created, as well as improve the reputation with the customers. This is referenced many times when we receive work orders from, new customers saying that I purchased a computer here from some time ago, and I was told that it's under new management and the computer doesn't work. So usually we get orders like this, and we get little snippets around to it to say that this previous guy, the Uncle Tim, wasn't really running things as he was supposed to do. This said, the game starts off easy with some of the easy replacements, such like hard drives, graphics cards, CPUs, and to be honest, I've been playing the game. I've never seen so many CPUs dying in the same week from different people. So, but apparently it's a thing. And
I've actually only seen one CPU die in my hands in my whole life.
In my whole life, like in 38 years of my life, I had 2 CPUs dying, and one of them because it was my fault. So
yeah, the same happened with me, and I lost a Quad Extreme.
The old AMD CPUs that didn't have an heat spreader, you had this small core on the middle, and if the cooler wasn't really making contact, it could go bad, and it did in my case.
No, but it couldn't. It would.
That's a story for another time, and it is what it is. But as I said, it gradually gets harder with issues like I don't know what's happening, but it just blue screens all the time. Please help me because I need the computer for the Dota 2 tournament. And that's another great aspect of this indie game, is that they have secured licensing, not only to mention the name of several games on the market like Dota, Flight Simulator, Counter-Strike Go, But also they have also real life hardware components from various name brands, like such as Corsair, Asus ROG, Cooler Master, Gigabyte, MSI, and many others. So in the game, actually, the parts that you buy and stuff like that are from name brands. Some others are made up, especially those budget hardwares that you can buy will be budget names, and those are made up names. But again, the majority of the quality ones would be from these name brands. There are 3 modes that you can play the game: career, which we described just now, as well as free build, where we enter a sandbox mode where we can play with no objectives, a limited amount of money and parts, and we can do pretty much whatever we want. And lastly, we have another mode called how to build a PC, where we get a kind of tutorial on how to build a PC from start to end. Honestly speaking about this game, I think that it got some undeserved criticism, mainly around that some things don't really make sense, and I could agree that some don't make sense. For example, I give you some examples here. Whenever you take a motherboard off, you have to take off all the standoffs from the case. Now, it could be a good practice, but the thing is, many motherboards, especially if you go for the form factor, let's say ATX, like even if you replace it for a mini ATX or a micro ATX, most of those standoffs will be exactly the same. You just need to remove the extra ones that you're not using. Okay, around the GPU slots, some of them might be different because they might be in different places. But again, you just look at the motherboard, you look at the case, and you immediately know which standoffs you need to put in or not. I guess that if you're playing this from a perspective of someone that doesn't know anything about computers, then okay, fine. That might be the case. But again, that's just, it is what it is. But another thing that doesn't make another sense, for example, you can buy a USB flash drive that you can use with free utilities like 3D Mark, virus scanners and stuff like that. And the freaking USB drive costs $300. I mean, who the hell pays $300 for a USB stick with free software inside? I guess this is just to make, the game a little bit more challenging. But ultimately, it's a game that I think that ultimately depicts as close to reality, or a scenario that is as close to reality as possible on what the PC building scene is, but obviously with simplified mechanics. And I think people don't really understand that. It's to simplify. Obviously, we cannot just go to this game and say, oh no, because you cannot simply put a cooler in without.
DJ. Explain it this way. This isn't an extremely realistic simulator. It's a game, people. It's to have fun.
Let me just give you another comparison. From this series of games, for example, one that I also played a lot, and I haven't spoken about it, but I will. It's Car Mechanic Simulator. Now, obviously, when you change like brake discs, it's not as simple as just taking bolts off and taking the brake calipers off and the brake disc comes off. There's a lot of things that have to come out first before that. But again, I really find these games enjoyable, and I use them to pass the time. Although I must tell you that this weekend I was playing this game for 4 consecutive hours, And it's such a simple game, but it's so addictive that you just want to get to the next order to see what comes up. Because as you evolve through it, the problems start getting more complicated. You start having more parts. You start having, for example, water cooling systems that you don't have in the beginning. You start to have piping. There's even a section just to define if you want hard bent piping or if you want soft piping for your water cooling, custom water cooling loops and stuff like that. I think, look, it's a great game. For me, I think it's a great experience. It's not like as I said, a blockbuster or a AAA game, not at all like that. But it's nice, it's enjoyable. And the best thing about this is that this game is actually free on Epic Store until tomorrow. And I think it's until 5 p.m, but that's what it says on my client. It might be different the time for you. But, it's free until tomorrow. And tomorrow, what day is it tomorrow? Tomorrow is the 14th of October, exactly. So 14th of October, you can still get this game for free in Epic Store. So go ahead, guys, don't miss it out. Even if you don't play it right now, get it in. Because you can play it later. What you cannot leave for later is leaving the like in our channel, please. You already know what to do, guys. Leave a like if you like, leave a dislike if you didn't like, although we don't support that. and subscribe our channels.
No, we don't support
exactly.
that.
We don't like that. Subscribe our channel. We want to keep bringing you this content that we bring every week. Well, I guess that for today that will be all. Blade, I guess that we have to say goodbye.
Yeah, we need to get the key to close the shop tonight.
Exactly. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week and game on.
See everyone next week. Have fun and game on.